we begin, as we have a joint meeting, and I know I just read this not too long ago, but before we begin, I want to remind the committee members and members of the public to follow our code of conduct at meetings. This includes commenting on the specific agenda item only and addressing the full body. Public speakers will not engage in conversation with committee members or staff, and all members of the committee, staff, and the public are expected to refrain from abusive language. Failure to comply with the code of conduct, which will disturb, disrupt, or impede the orderly conduct of this meeting, will result in removal from the meeting. This meeting of Neighborhood Services and Education Committee and Committee of the Whole joint special meeting with the County of Santa Clara Children, Seniors, and Families Committee will now come to order. Can the clerk please call the roll?
Candelas.
Here.
Torres.
Here.
Duan.
Present.
Ortiz.
Present.
And Davis.
Here.
Thank you.
Supervisor Chavez.
Here.
Supervisor Arenas.
Here.
Thank you. And before we get into the rest of the agenda, I would like to thank our colleagues from the Board of Supervisors for joining us this afternoon. We all know each other, if you can't tell, and we're all very excited to be here together. This is one of, I think, many meetings, not just of this committee that will be joint, but there's just a lot of work now as our problems have gotten more and more complex that we need to have better and better collaboration between the city and the county, and not just at the staff level, but also at the elected level. And so we are attempting to work better together so that we can provide better services for our residents, and so we can positively impact the lives of children and families. And I would like to invite Committee Chair Supervisor Cindy Chavez to call the meeting on behalf of the county to order.
Thank you, and I'm calling the meeting formally to order. And I also wanted to say a very special thank you to Chair Davis and to the entire committee for being willing to look at children's issues across the two organizations. We do a lot of work together on the formerly Mayor's Gang Task Force, and I forgot the new name now. Yeah. And what happens is, I think we're all doing really excellent work in our silos, and our work really can't be excellent until it's more integrated. And that's really what the opportunity we have before us today. We know the importance of this partnership, and all of you who do work with us know how frustrating it can be to deal with both organizations and not us talking with one voice. And so what I'm very excited about today is that this will give us a chance to understand the work each of us are doing at a much deeper level, understand gaps, and perhaps how we move forward together. So thank you, Chair Davis, and to the board, and also to the city staff and the county staff for being so amenable to this opportunity.
Thank you. We will have a series of presenters today, followed by public comment, and then we'll invite committee members to join the discussion. So that's kind of how we're going to roll today. But first, we'll go to item B, which is public comment for items not on the agenda. And for those of you who attend city council meetings but don't attend county meetings, the county has public comment works a little bit differently there, and we're going to go by that standard today. So if Supervisor Chavez can explain that.
Thank you. So any members of the public who would like to speak to an item that is not on the agenda but within the purview of these committees, if you could raise your virtual hand now, and if you have your speaker cards, if those can be made available. If we have over 5 people, we will have these be 1-minute comments, and as soon as the first public speaker begins speaking, we close the queue.
Is there any public comment?
We have quite a few cards. They're all regarding the master plan.
Okay.
That's going to be for the next portion.
Yes.
Okay. And we have no hands on Zoom.
Okay, thank you. So we will close public comment for items not on the agenda. And moving to item C, approve agenda and changes to the committee agenda. Angel, do we have anything there? Okay, so we can move to item D, and we will go to the presentation from the County Office of Children and Family Policies.
So if I could, I just want to introduce our Chief Operating Officer, Greta Hansen. And we have a bunch of county staff here, and I know they're going to introduce themselves as their opportunity comes up. Just a couple things, colleagues. We're going to hear all these presentations in a row. It's going to be a lot of presentations, and I just want to alert everybody. We're going to be then hearing from the public and then getting questions or have a discussion. So I'm going to just say take notes, because the reason we want all of these to be heard together is it'll probably answer questions and allow for a more rich discussion at the end. So the reason I'm saying that is that each of these are timed. This first presentation is 10 minutes, and I just want to make sure we live within that 10 minutes because each of them are chunky. They're kind of rich. So I don't know, do you have a timer that people can see, or am I supposed to go? Maybe if we could put the timer up for our staff, that'd be great. Thank you. And then I'm going to turn it over to Sarah Duffy, our Chief Children's Officer.
Do you want to go ahead and start?
Sure, I can go ahead. Thank you, Laura. Sarah Duffy, Chief Children's Officer. And then Laura, do you want to start us off?
Thank you, Sarah. Good afternoon. Laura Buzo, Assistant to the City Manager, supporting Deputy City Manager Angel Rios with the development of the Children Youth Services Master Plan. We welcome our colleagues from the County of Santa Clara and City of San Jose and the many partners and community members who joined us this afternoon, so thank you. I would like to have my city colleagues introduce themselves.
Maria de Leon, Deputy Director with the Recreation Division with PRNS.
Hi, I'm Vidya Kilambi, Division Manager of Education and Learning Pathways with the San Jose Public Library.
Thank you. As mentioned, we have 4 presentations for you this afternoon. We are mindful of time and will not address each slide in depth, but you have the information before you for reference. And with that, I'd like to welcome our colleague, Sarah Duffy, and our guest in the box.
Thank you, Laura. Do you want to advance to the next 2 slides?
Sarah, if you could just introduce who's with you.
I will, yes.
Thank
so
you.
I'm here today, and I'll have my colleagues in the box introduce themselves.
Mariel Caballero, Deputy Director, Probation Administration, on behalf of Chief Burchard, who is on his way.
Good afternoon, Damian Wright, Director of Department of Family and Children Services.
Good afternoon, Rocio Luna, Deputy County Executive.
Okay, thank you. So I want to start off, my name again is Sarah Duffy. I'm the Chief Children's Officer overseeing the Office of Children and Families Policy, and it's really wonderful to be here today to talk about shared partnerships. And I will try my best to keep my set of slides to 10 minutes. It will be tough, but I'll try. So today I'm going to start off by providing a quick overview of the Office of Children and Families Policy. Then I'll cover a little bit about our children's budget. And then I'm going to cover several slides that were provided to me and worked on in partnership with county departments. So I do want to give a really big thank you to all of the county departments that provided many rounds of information to inform the presentation, and many of the staff from departments are actually sitting here in the room with us and will be available to speak or answer questions after the presentation if there's anything specific to them. So here on this slide, I wanted to include this slide, which has a diagram of the work of the Office of Children and Families Policy, and just talk a little bit about the history. The Office of Children and Families Policy was created in 2021 by the Board of Supervisors with approval from county administration to create a centralized location in the county to really understand what are the needs of children and families and what are the very most critical needs, and how well is the county doing in providing services to support the children and families that need resources the most. And so that involves, in the first box, you'll see policy and analysis to understand where we can advocate at the state and federal levels, where we can look at our own internal policies, and of course, how we can share policy platforms across jurisdictions. It also involves, and this is really the key to the discussion today, a lot of partnerships. There are many, many different partnerships that our office leans on as we do our work. Of course, partnerships within county agencies, but also really important is partnerships with cities, partnerships with the City of San Jose, which of course has a lot of really critical programming that serves the same families that the county serves. So that's a key partnership. Other partnerships include work with the County Office of Education, with school districts, with First Five, with nonprofit organizations, and the community itself, young people, children, their parents, and caregivers. So we'll talk more about the key partnerships today. And then I also am going to just make a point out to our strategic issues and initiatives that we have within our office, and I'll cover a few of those as well. And with that, I'll go on to the next slide. Okay, here you'll see a snapshot, an overview of the spending on children and families that the county spends annually. This is from fiscal year 22-23, and this is a snapshot from the children's budget. And actually the budget for fiscal year 23-24 will be coming out soon. And you can see here that last year the county spent well over $1 billion on children and family services. So this is a really helpful analysis that allows us to look really deeply at what the spending is for children and families. You can see this is high level. For example, the Social Services Agency has over $500 million that goes to children and families. You can also see significant investments in a number of other departments, from behavioral health to probation to hospitals and so forth. And this is a really wonderful tool. For those of you that are here in person, we do have packets that we put together with hard copies of the children's budget, and those are up by the door. You can get those, and those have a lot more detail on each of the different agencies, the programming, the number of clients anticipated to be served, funding source, et cetera. So it's a great policy tool, and it really helped guide the presentation here today. So with the next slide, I'm going to start talking about department-specific work for children and families. So the content on the slides that follow are really intended for reference. I'm not going to go through all of the text here, but I'll share a little bit about how I gathered the information. So I pulled key programs for children and families from the children's budget, shared those with departments, and then they really identified where they partner most closely with the city of San Jose. So what I'm going to do is just share some highlights of the partnership work with each of the departments that I'll cover on these slides. And then you can refer to this as a reference if you want to look back at what key programs and key potential partnerships are with the county departments. So here we have Social Services Agency, and this slide highlights services and supports offered by Social Services Agency. Some of these are done in partnership with the city of San Jose, and one example of a great partnership is the Youth Summer Camps program that ensures children and youth involved with DFCS, which is the Department of Family and Children Services, as well as those impacted by poverty and an inability to pay, are connected with local camps and summer activities that families may have not otherwise been able to afford. So that's a great example of a strong partnership between the city and county. Next slide, please. Here we have a list of programs for children and families that is overseen by the Behavioral Health Services Department. Highlights of collaboration between Behavioral Health Services and the City of San Jose include the School Link Services Coordinators, which refer and link students to City of San Jose funded programs such as the Female Intervention Team, San Jose Works Program, Youth Intervention Services, and community centers. City programs also partner very closely with School Link Services resource trainings to share programs and activities for San Jose residents and students. I also want to call out a couple of recent examples provided by the Behavioral Health Services Department. The Department and City of San Jose Safe Schools Initiative recently partnered to respond to an incident at Sunrise Middle School and provided counseling and drop-in support for students. Also, the Behavioral Health Services Department participated in the City of San Jose's 10th Annual San Jose Youth Empowerment Alliance Safe Community Summit by co-presenting on mental health awareness with Youth Intervention Services. And finally, I just want to call out that the Behavioral Health Services Department is very much looking forward to resource and referral linkages to school-based City of San Jose programs and community resources with the expansion of school-based wellness centers. Next slide, please. Okay, so the probation department collaborates and coordinates with the City of San Jose, often in response to crisis situations such as activations of the Safe School Campus Initiative or in response to gang activity when appropriate. The Neighborhood Safety and Services Unit does not operate in communities where there's an existing Project Hope or SJYA initiative, but they do, the Neighborhood Services Unit and SJYA share CBO resources and link to city-county services when needed. So they're really leveraging resources between those two programs. Next slide. Okay, only a couple more. Hopefully this is useful. The Public Health Department Violence Prevention Program collaborates with the city to create safe, resilient, and engaged communities that address violence prevention at the neighborhood levels. The program aligns with the City of San Jose's action plan to prevent violence by involving residents in violence prevention efforts. The program is housed by the Healthy Communities Branch, which has several programs that work with the City of San Jose to prevent chronic diseases by promoting healthy behaviors, nutrition, and policies through capacity building, training, and education. For direct programs in the Public Health Department's Maternal, Child, and Family Health Branch, such as nurse home visitation programs, Women, Infants, and Children, or WIC, Black Infant Health, and the Childhood Lead Poisoning Prevention Programs, these are also available countywide with a lot of resources going towards San Jose. And there is a real opportunity to intentionally build partnerships with ongoing efforts in the city to link families with these direct care programs to further support resilience and health. Okay, next slide. And then the Office of Supportive Housing. So staff in the Office of Supportive Housing are in weekly, if not daily, contact with counterparts at the city's housing department. And this collaboration has actually been recognized at a national level. Examples of the partnership have been critical to funding the development and construction of affordable and supportive housing, including housing for families, funding and supporting the homelessness prevention system, working together on eviction prevention initiatives, working on system partners with other key stakeholders, including Destination Home, the Housing Authority, and other cities to develop and implement the community plan to end homelessness, and supporting providers of housing services for survivors of gender-based violence. Okay, and this is my last slide. The Office of the County Executive, and I'll specifically talk about the Office of Children and Families Policy, which is oftentimes working in partnership with the Division of Equity and Social Justice, strategically works to address the needs of children and families through cross-sectional approaches to meet unique community needs. So one recent and very robust example of this is the board's allocation of $20 million to reinforce the early care workforce and expand access to childcare. And this aligns actually with the City of San Jose's strategic priority to strengthen childcare and early education, particularly in the areas of the city that have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. So we have been partnering our office with the Valley Health Foundation on a grants program for childcare providers to access funding to expand their programs and have more children attend. And that collaboration has been really helped along by working with the city's library departments and parks and neighborhood services departments to ensure that childcare providers through the Family, Friends, and Neighbors program, operators of community centers are supported as they apply to childcare grants. The city library and community centers have also been really helpful in posting grant information in multiple languages in their sites and providing meeting spaces and community resources for use to support grant applicants. Valley Health Foundation is also collaborating with the planning and building inspection departments to ensure support for family child care providers that will receive grant funds to help them navigate the building and construction process. And I'll end with one example. The county is conducting a presentation on the county's guaranteed basic income pilot to the city's youth advisory board. And this will help ensure, we hope, very strong outreach as the basic income pilots for unhoused high school seniors rolls out. So those are just highlights. There are many, many more partnerships, but I'll end there. And I will pass it over to Laura.
Thank you, Sarah. Next slide, please. So before we begin, we'd like to ground this on why this afternoon's joint meeting and the development of the Children Youth Services Master Plan is critically important to the children, youth, and families of San Jose. As you can see by some of the key data points, a significant number of San Jose children, youth, and adults experience unsurmountable barriers and challenges that place them at risk or vulnerable to negative influences, generational trauma and poverty, lower educational attainment, housing instability, violence, and poor health outcomes. Many of these adults will never have an opportunity to achieve their life goals or dreams or full potential. And many of these adults have children of their own or children in their immediate family. And they too are at great risk of a future marred by heartbreak and hardship. The data is very clear on every report, from the Santa Clara County Children's Data Book to the Joint Venture Silicon Valley Index Report, to the county's annual Juvenile Justice Data Book and the child welfare data, that while considerable investments, initiatives, and services have made inroads, the reality is that these disproportionalities and disparities continue to impact specific racial and ethnic populations and the same San Jose communities and zip codes year after year. And while wealth continues to expand for many San Jose residents, the gap widens between those that can participate and benefit in this burgeoning economy and the many children, youth, and young adults that continue to be left out of the prosperity of Silicon Valley. We can learn from history and be innovative and strategic by bringing the city, the county, educational leaders, families, youth, and community stakeholders together through a collective impact approach to dismantle the systemic racism, structural and institutional barriers that perpetuate generational cycles of poverty and trauma, and in their place create a safety net of supports that centers the hopes, dreams, assets, and voices of San Jose children and youth. Collectively, we can create new pathways and opportunities to ensure that every San Jose child and youth grows up with the confidence and the hope that they too, regardless of their race, ethnic, or socioeconomic background, family history, LGBTQ identity, developmental disabilities, or zip code, can achieve their educational and career goals. By centering the interests and needs of our youngest residents, we will see short and long-term impacts that will have a rippling benefit to the vibrancy, economy, well-being, and future for all those who live, work, invest, and do business in San Jose. Now is a time for a collective call to action, to bring attention to and address the holistic needs of all children and youth, but particularly those most vulnerable, underserved, and marginalized. Next slide. While the master plan will take a citywide approach, we recognize the importance of focusing on residents who have been most impacted by racial, socioeconomic, educational, health disparities. As we know, the pandemic impacted many of these communities. The city's administration, in response, recognized that it was important to be intentional and strategic in not only creating a safety net for children, youth, and their families, but also addressing the system and structural barriers, policies, and practices that increase their vulnerability. As we knew then that we could not wait for another pandemic or another catastrophe to react. As a result, in 2021, the City Council formalized this vision by directing the city manager to develop a youth development master plan. The city has made tremendous inroads over the years in addressing the needs of children and youth. Therefore, we're shaping the master plan around existing city policies, initiatives, strategies, and investments such as those listed above. The Bill of Rights, the Youth Empowerment Alliance Strategic Plan, the Racial Equity Impact Analysis Tool, and more recently, the City Council's approval of $10.5 million of ARP American Rescue Plan funds to support vulnerable children and youth in the community. Next slide. The overarching goal of the plan is to create and expand pathways and supports from cradle to career for all San Jose children, youth, and young adults from birth through age 24. Using the life course framework, it is important that we consider the age continuum of children and youth and the necessary supports they need to achieve key developmental milestones, from kindergarten readiness at 5 years old to 8th grade literacy and math skills in middle school and high school completion. These supports will strengthen their protective factors and resiliency skills and their social, emotional, educational, health outcomes, resulting in healthier, happier, and more productive children and youth with increased opportunities to thrive and who are better prepared to achieve their life goals and dreams. Next slide. The master plan will serve as the umbrella for all City of San Jose Children Youth Services and ensure alignment, coordination, and integration across city departments and in partnership with external community partners. To achieve this, the master plan will be designed as a living document that will serve as a roadmap and provide a strategic framework to change the narrative for many of the children and youth in our community through the following: by providing guidance on policy and priorities, to work towards collective impact approach that addresses the systems transformation by bringing diverse sectors of the community to co-design an integrated service delivery system and system of care, so that we can increase access to a continuum of support from cradle to career and from prevention to intervention services. All of this will be grounded and developed through the lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion, recognizing and understanding the generational trauma and inequities that our communities experience and the structural racism and barriers that exist. Next slide. To ensure that we are not designing the master plan in isolation, it was important to have authentic engagement from our diverse community. We engaged nearly 3,000 individuals, hosted 33 focus groups, and had representation from over 120 organizations. We lifted the diverse lived experiences from foster youth, transitional aged youth, as well as community-based organizations and a cross-sector of city and county department staff, as well as families and children with special needs, the LGBTQ youth, as well as providers, both in preschool and childcare, and many education leaders. From these engagement activities, there were emerging themes and priority areas that resonated across the various communities, as you can see listed here. Communities are wanting to feel more connected in their neighborhoods, feel safe in their communities. They want access to early care and education and childcare, both for our youngest residents as well as for our school-aged students. They want access to high-quality supports around learning and empowerment, opportunities for meaningful and sustaining jobs, and resources and supports that will help them with their mental health and wellness and sense of belonging, as well as coordinating services across diverse systems. The emerging themes and priority areas confirm that the needs, challenges, and barriers that our communities raised are consistent with those identified in other initiatives, strategic plans, and studies. Unfortunately, it also cemented that it was not enough to simply prescribe a program or service, but that it was equally important to undo the deep-rooted causes that perpetuate generational cycles of poverty, trauma, and inequities through systems transformation. Next slide. So to share with you just a brief overview of our current timeline from now through next year, we are actually currently in the midst of writing the master plan as we speak. We've already started developing a collective impact network of partners to begin co-creating and co-designing a San Jose system of care. We will be launching the Blue Zones Readiness Assessment in calendar year 2024, which you will hear more about in a minute. And then also we plan to present the completed master plan to the Neighborhood Services and Education Committee in January 2024. Next slide. And then one more. As mentioned, in a parallel process while we develop the master plan, we recognize that in order to have sustainable impact in the lives of our youngest residents, we have to work on system transformation. It was not lost on us that the City of San Jose, like other entities in this ecosystem, it was critical and important role as a convener, policymaker, funder, advocate, and service provider. The city touches many areas of families and children's lives. We recognize that no one entity holds the solution. Addressing complex challenges requires a collaborative network of policymakers, multidisciplinary providers, public entities, education leaders, community members, families and youth to develop an interconnected and integrated single system of support. as we call the system of care, that will ensure a no wrong door entry that is equipped and responsive to the needs of children, youth, and their families along the prevention continuum. The system of care can be defined as a coordinated network of effective community-based services and supports for children and youth who are vulnerable or at risk for poor physical, mental health, and other socioeconomic outcomes. Children and youth have the opportunity to identify the services that best meet their needs. Next slide. While we have made many strides over the years strengthening partnerships and aligning efforts across diverse sectors of the city and the county, we also recognize that silos still exist and very often lack cross-systems coordination and integration. While these silos have not always been intentional, they have nonetheless created obstacles and barriers for children, youth, and families to access critical services. This quote conveys it well. We must organize systems around youth, not institutions. To achieve economic mobility for every child, we must recognize systems around youth, not institutions. It requires us to take a very different approach to the work of policy and developing relationships within a community. Next slide. Therefore, to expand pathways and opportunities from cradle to career and to increase access to services through systems transformation, it is important that we align across the county's system of care and the city's system of care for children and youth, moving us all from traditional ways of serving children and youth and moving towards a collective impact approach. We believe that Assembly Bill 2083, Memorandum of Understanding, can serve as a vehicle per state requirement that encourages the integration of children, youth, and family services and strengthen partnerships across prevention continuum through the Families First prevention services. Although not a required partner in AB 2083, the City of San Jose has a unique opportunity to bring cross-system entities, community-based organizations, and many other community stakeholders to develop this integrated and interconnected system of care. We also are in a position to identify shared and agreed data-driven priorities and system and programmatic outcomes. We can also leverage coordinated network of services to co-create and co-design community pathways with a no wrong door service delivery. It is a vision that the system of care is embedded in community, which will transcend administration and individuals, ensuring that it is sustainable. Over the years, and more recently at the height of the pandemic, the city and county have moved swiftly in advocating and addressing issues of food insecurity, homelessness, violence, child abuse, and poverty. We are confident that we can demonstrate once again the ability to come together with the focus on addressing the needs, interests, and future of San Jose children and youth. Next slide. So as we heard the priorities across our community, we recognized that it was important to be proactive. And so we see an opportunity to launch 2 demonstration sites in partnership with existing leadership and service providers. This allows us the opportunity to develop a coordinated and integrated system of care in communities that have many strengths and assets, but are also disproportionately impacted in the juvenile welfare and justice system, as they often experience inequitable health, education, employment, and other socioeconomic disparities. The design of the service delivery system will be grounded on racial equity, cultural relevancy, trauma-informed practices, and proven systems change. With authentic engagement of families and youth involved in the design, this demonstration sites, we can lift up and address the barriers and challenges families and youth experience and create a framework and model that can be replicated in other communities and across the county. We should also note that the demonstration sites will also support the City of San Jose Parks, Recreation, Neighborhood Services, Youth Empowerment Alliance staff, and partners in achieving a key objective in their strategic plan, which is aimed at reducing youth and community violence. And it would also enhance, expand, and align the work of the Si Se Puede Collective and the Franklin McKinley Children's Initiative in these communities and attachment neighborhoods. Next slide. So as we move along the system of care through a multi-phase approach, we are, as I mentioned, currently in the process of developing and finalizing the master plan and have just started launching this collective network to begin developing shared culture and vision around a system of care. Our last phase, phase 3, will move us from implementation and sustainability, which includes developing a feedback loop, continuous quality improvement, and ongoing engagement of city staff, partners, families, and youth in the design. And so with that, I'll hand it over to Sarah.
Thank you, Laura. So I'm just going to kind of wrap up this section on the shared system of care and share two of the key county initiatives. And I really want to recognize Social Services Agency as the lead in the Santa Clara County Children and Youth System of Care work. So the Children and Youth System of Care is one of several interagency collaborations in the county that seeks to bring together agencies and departments in pursuit of the most effective ways to serve children, youth, and families, mainly driven by a desire to prevent further systemic traumatization of children, youth, and families in communities. And there are two key initiatives to help drive this work. The first is Assembly Bill 2083, which builds upon the implementation of the Continuum of Care reform, which reflects the belief that all children served by the foster care system need, deserve, and have the ability to be part of a loving family and not to grow up in congregate settings. Additionally, there is a shared belief that agencies serving children and youth must collaborate effectively to surround children, families, and caregivers with needed supports, services, and resources. So that's the work and the goal of AB 2083. The second is the Family First Prevention Program. This program enhances opportunities for prevention all along the continuum of services for children, youth, and families. The county has a 3-year prevention plan, a hard copy of which we have actually in a packet at the top of the steps, that includes interventions along the prevention continuum. So this includes primary preventions, which are the community pathways, secondary, which is preventing family involvement with probation or child welfare, and tertiary prevention strategies, which is associated with mitigating harm for families that are already system involved. Part of the initial stages of implementing this work involve building the community pathway, an entry point in community where families can seek voluntary supports in times of need without needing to be part of child welfare probation systems. This is an opportunity of really great partnership with the city to align in the zip codes that have been identified as focus areas. The county prevention plan has 5 main objectives, which are first, increasing access to services to be more relevant to family needs. Second, changing agency culture to work differently with families. Third, addressing systemic disproportionality. Fourth, establishing a sustainable infrastructure. And fifth, utilizing continuous quality improvement and feedback loops to ensure accountability. So those are all built into the Family First Prevention Services Plan. And the efforts will be for children and youth at imminent risk of harm or neglect. So those are the priority groups, and therefore priority focuses. First, families or youth struggling with substance use. Second, pregnant or parenting foster youth. Third, homeless youth or families. And fourth, families struggling with domestic violence. Next slide, please. And I'll just end on this slide that we often reflect on when we're in system of care collaborative meetings. And it shows the critical components of a system that works together to ensure children and families are thriving. So we see here trusting relationships, from the right at the very base, and as we move up through the line, we see better communication, increased cooperation, community-wide resource mobilization, cross-sector collaboration, system change, collective community impact, and comprehensive coordinated care. And these factors all lead toward moving the needle to create equitable outcomes for children and families. And so we frequently return to this image as a reminder of the system's goals. So with that, I will turn the presentation, I think, over to Margaret for the Blue Zones.
Yes, and our guest Margaret Brown is joining us virtually, and so she will be presenting on Blue Zones.
Margaret, before you start, I'd like to just set the stage a little bit for Blue Zones, and Margaret will give us a nice overview of it. But I just want to talk a little bit about we've heard about the zip codes that were most impacted by COVID during the pandemic, and that's largely due to, and I said this on Tuesday at the county, then Councilmember Arenas and Carrasco and Esparza made sure that we looked at our COVID rates by zip code, and they were concentrated in the east and central parts of the city. And that is also where there were higher rates of death. That made me think about Blue Zones, which are places across the world where people of modest means can live healthy to age 100 and beyond. And as we came out of the pandemic and still have to grapple with COVID and many other systemic issues for our children and youth and families, I really wanted to start having the discussion about how Blue Zones tenets have been implemented across 7 cities in the United States to meaningfully move the needle on health and decrease health disparities. And so that's what we're talking about. We've got funding from, a little bit of funding from the city. The county voted on Tuesday as well to come back and look at funding the Blue Zones Readiness Assessment. We've also got some funding from Adobe, and we're looking for we've got some requests into other partners to actually look at Blue Zones Readiness Assessment for the city of San Jose. And what that will tell us is what our strengths and weaknesses and opportunities are for implementing Blue Zones as a coordination with the county, the city, nonprofits, philanthropy, and businesses. So I'll turn it over to Margaret now to tell us more.
Is she attending via Zoom? Mm-hmm. We don't have her as a panelist or an attendee at the moment.
Laura, do you want to give her a call, or should we?
Yeah. Oh, Diana is calling her.
Okay, let's give it a minute here. I think Margaret's trying to zoom in. Hi there. Hi, thank you. Go ahead, Margaret.
Okay, great. Thank you all for having me.
Is to empower everyone everywhere to live a longer, better life. And am I advancing or somebody else? Thank you. The Blue Zones concept was first discovered when in about 20 years ago, Dan Buettner was searching for the longest lived populations. The 5 here on the screen are those that were discovered to have individuals living to age 100 at 10 times the rate that we do here in the United States. And They subsequently went back with National Geographic and a team of demographers and researchers to try to understand what are the commonalities that is causing these populations to live longer, and not just longer, but longer, healthier lives with a fraction of the disease that we see here in the US. Next slide, please. And those commonalities are referred to as the Power Nine. Very common sense for all of us who are familiar with public health, healthcare, just a total well-being. What we're looking at here is the ability to move naturally, live with purpose, or have the right outlook, both managing stress and downshifting and living with purpose, eating wisely. And this shows up in a number of ways, but also not only a focus on what we eat in terms of healthier foods, but also how much we eat and how we share that food with friends. And then finally, connect. When we're focused on connecting with our community, feeling like we have a sense of belonging and pride in our community and giving back, being able to care for our loved ones and put them first in our life, and then surrounding ourselves with slow, connected friendships that help us manage through life and all the things that come our way. Next slide. We deploy the Blue Zones Power 9 in a life radius approach. So when we think about the life radius, it's typically looking at 20 miles of where an individual lives. So we really want to address the people that are in that space and activating individuals within a community to become healthier. And we do that through deploying evidence-based list of options on an individual pledge that we work with individuals to select and commit to following through on 2 to 3 items. There's other ways to connect and engage people also. So we may do that through socially connected networks such as MOIs, purpose workshops, volunteering. We also seek in a Blue Zones project to work with all of the places that people are spending their time at, the most of their time. So on average, children may spend 900 hours of time in a school building each year. Employees spending much more than that, closer to 3,000 hours at work each year. And we really want to make those surroundings and optimize those to help those individuals have the healthy choice available and as an easy choice. When we talk about policy, this is both in terms of the formal P policy that all of us know, but it's also the other ways in which policy gets enacted within a community. So how do we address built environment, create green space, make things easier for transportation, access to parks and walkability, bikeability, safe routes to school, Vision Zero planning, all of those great things. Housing is another key component there. When we look at food, we're really looking at access to food across the whole continuum of a community in terms of both price point. Is it accessible? Is it there? Do you simply have the availability of this food in your community? And then how is it being showing up in people's lives? And so that we do that through looking at the entire landscape of food in all the places that food shows up. And then common sense approaches to tobacco and alcohol. So when we're looking at those policies, many communities have these in place, but we're looking for how do we strengthen them or help on the enforcement of those, or helping to evolve those policies so that they cover all areas of the most current issues that a community may be facing. So thinking about things like vaping or passing legal marijuana and how we help protect our youth in common sense ways. Next slide, please. And really the focus of the Blue Zones is to create this kind of healthy bottom line. We're looking for developing healthy people as the core of the work that we do, but also impacting healthy environments and healthy economy to really drive a total community's overall well-being. Next slide. Many of you have seen these outcomes from the work that we have done in some of our longest term communities. Currently, Blue Zones is in around 90 communities. Roughly 20% of California counties are in some way affiliated or working through a Blue Zones project. We have many more coming online in the next year that are already completed with assessment and looking to launch. So when we're talking about the impact that Blue Zones can have, we're really focused on, one, reducing overall risk, two, the overall health population, reducing things like smoking, increasing exercise in kids and adults, also looking at how do we people eating healthier vegetables, identifying that they feel more purposeful, better life evaluation. But the other things are hard metrics that we can look at. We can look at things like follow-on grants. Every single community that we've worked in has experienced an increase in total follow-on grants in terms of addressing some of these key policy areas and making available funds for implementation, so that we are really moving ahead and attacking some of these in that shortened timeline. Next slide, please. Next slide. So the process to becoming a Blue Zones is really starting with this initial on-site assessment. And that is the next body of work that we're working through with the city of San Jose and other partners. And during that process, we're going to be looking to have additional community presentations to provide learning opportunities for individuals broadly across the community to understand if they are in agreement and they are ready and are motivated to be engaged with Blue Zones, and that they feel like Blue Zones is the right model for their community. That's really very important component. We're also going to be looking from Blue Zones to see what is the kind of current state of readiness. Every community is starting from a different point. There's some that are really far progressed, and there's others that are small and maybe have been traditionally underfunded that are really just getting started. And so we really need to understand what is the starting point? And we get at that by having a number of one-on-one meetings with community leaders and stakeholders, having some focus groups to really dig into each of those core areas that are in the life radius. So the people, places, policy buckets, and meeting with individuals, reviewing data and comprehensive plans and community health needs assessments and all other types of reports that we can gather to really understand where there's alignment, where we feel like we can add some oomph and potentially support and launch additional initiatives around those things that are going well, and then help to meet some of those opportunity gaps. Following the community assessment, there will be a robust report that is delivered along with a customized approach that is going to lay out opportunities for scope and scale of bringing Blue Zones to San Jose. And so that will be very much formed along with input from all of the information gathered during the site assessment. Once you've completed a site assessment and the community has mutually agreed and says, we're ready to move forward, we want to do this process, we would initiate with a 6-month foundation phase, because you cannot learn everything that is needed to know. You cannot engage with every individual in that initial assessment. We'll have to go deeper and really form intentional committee structures. We will also have to draft a blueprint, which means we're going to have to work with the steering committee to really define what goes into the blueprint, select metrics. During this time, we will also complete a baseline measurement using the Wellbeing Index by Gallup. And we will also be focused on hiring a local team to help assist in this process. So that is one of the most essential items here. Is right now we're working with community partners, but when we're talking about launching the transformation phase, they will hire a local team that will be known to you. You'll be, respected as leaders in their area and in the area of public and community health, and will help form and drive this process forward. And at the conclusion of that, you'll be looking at 3 to 7 years of transformation work. So really intending on meeting those key outcomes that have been selected as part of that blueprinting process. During this process, Blue Zones will put all fees at risk. And so that as we are looking at this on an annual evaluation of the progress that's being made, if anything is not meeting those key goals, then we put our fees at risk. Those are fees that you will not pay. And on top of that, we will bring a continuous improvement approach to this to continually refine and ensure that we meet the overall long-term goals of the project. Next slide, please. So just going a little deeper into the phase 1 readiness assessment. Next slide. We are really looking to, again, educate, engage, mobilize local leaders and residents, evaluate the overall current state of well-being and readiness. Readiness is a key component, meaning do we feel like we can make a Blue Zones project happen here? And are the key leaders working in partnership together? Are there broad base of stakeholders, not only coming from your nonprofit sector and your city sector, but also CEO champions coming from your largest employers, your school leaders? All of those things really have to be aligned. And then we are going to be, again, looking to produce and present a customized proposal for approach for the next stage of the Blue Zones transformation. Next slide. These are just some examples of, the collateral and things that get created. Not here, but we can share the collateral and things that get created when we're going through the assessment process. A couple of things that will need to happen really right off the bat is we'll need to create a landing page. So that is the place where we point people to RSVP. We will need to work with the team on the planning team to create a list of stakeholders that will need to be engaged. Invites will need to go out. Venue space will need to be selected and scheduled. And we will just hit that planning in depth over an 8-week period. So once we know we're officially moving forward and we've selected the date for Blue Zones to be on site, we will begin that planning process with a dedicated team of project managers that are going to help make that lift a little bit easier. And we're going to do that over about an 8-week period, meeting weekly, crafting what the approach is, making sure that we're getting the stakeholders in the reach that we need to, all the way up to the on-site time, which is about a 2-day period of time of assessment where we're having those conversations. That's the on-site period. And then we have a couple of weeks of follow-up, additional one-on-ones, et cetera, to make sure that we have covered all ground. And I will stop there. Are there any questions relative to the site assessment or what this process entails?
Thank you, Margaret. We are going to need to go to, if you can hang on the line, we're going to need to go to public comment first.
Okay.
And then we will have comments and questions from the members of the committee as well as staff.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks. All right.
We have 16 public speaker cards. I'm going to call 5 names at a time. Can Victor Vasquez, Lisa Christian, Jeremy Bruce, Veronica G., and Yosela Rizzo make their way down to security on the right? You will be directed to the podium and will have 1 minute to speak. Please state your name prior to speaking. Thank you.
All right, I guess I'll be setting the bar here for speakers as the first one. Good afternoon, City Council members and County Supervisors. My name is Jeremy Bruce, and I am the Director of Policy and Organizing with Amigos de Guadalupe Center for Justice and Empowerment, also part of the Si Se Puede Collective. We appreciate the city and county for continuing to meet together, to work together to provide integrated services, especially around our children and youth master plan. The Si Se Puede Collective will be working to coordinate our children and youth services amongst our 5 organizations to improve collective outcomes as well. We hope in our joint pilot with the city and county, we will prove successful that we look forward to providing our relationship with the city and county. This work is not easy, and the Si Se Puede Collective needs infrastructure support to make the pilot successful. Our committee,
Thank you. Next speaker.
And clerk, there is at least 1 speaker card on the box on that side too.
Okay, I will call the next 5 names down. I don't see anybody at the podium. You ready to speak? You can make your way down. Before you speak, I'm going to call the next 5 names to make their way down to security. Francisco Frank Valenzuela, Elizabeth Quesada, Jessica Trejo, Jessica Montezuma, and Janelle Garcia. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Lisa Christian with Catholic Charities, Chief Program and Strategy Officer. We were so excited to be part of this master plan and think that this is an amazing opportunity for partnerships families, community voice, and those organizations that serve those families all to come together. And we just wanted to give kudos to everybody who was part of it, and we are thrilled to be an opportunity to help those families move forward with housing, health equity, education, and those services. So we just wanted to say thank you for letting us be part of this, and what a great opportunity this will be for the families. Thanks.
Thank you. Next speaker.
I'm sorry, I think they want everyone to line up that's going to speak. Veronica, go ahead. Thank you.
Supervisors, council members, good afternoon. My name is Veronica Goey. I'm the Executive Director of Grail Family Services and one of the founding members of the Si Se Puede Collective. I want to start by first acknowledging the City of San Jose staff for their efforts to develop a comprehensive children youth services master plan that incorporated input from the community in collaboration with different stakeholders. I also want to acknowledge the City of San Jose for selecting the Mayfair community as one of the pilot sites for the implementation of this plan. We know that our community needs meaningful long-term investments and systems change to overcome decades of inequities and historical disinvestment. We know that real change only happens when the systems that are supposed to serve neighborhood residents actually engage them in the process. We recommend the plan and its support for an East Side system of care that advances early education.
Thank you. The next speaker can make their way down.
Sorry. Hi, you're probably having flashbacks, right, being here? Thank you, Supervisor Chavez, Arenas City Council. I'm going to be brief. I'm here. My name is Francisco Valenzuela. I represent San Andreas Regional Center. We serve over 13,000 families with developmental disabilities. We've been part of the master plan, the committees that have been meeting, and we support the work that's being done. I'm glad that the county is also part of this. We look forward to partnering with you. The only thing I ask, and I know there's a lot of policy that's going to come from this, that the wording funding eventually be added to a lot of this, because without funding, without a master plan that has actual teeth, this is a great plan, but without funding, it's not going to go any forward than that. You're all great minds. I know you're all great leaders. We've been very fortunate to have great partnerships with everybody in this room, and anything that we can do as a regional center to support our community, we're here for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And in the interest of time, you guys can just start lining up along the steps in front of the podium and just make your way down as soon as the next speaker is done. Thank you.
Good evening, Victor Vasquez, Co-Executive Director of Somos Mayfair. We're in support of the Children's Master Plan. There's a lot of data that we must remember. Latino youth account for 66% of all arrests. Race is a factor. 53% of youth are arrested from the zip codes 95116, 95127, 95121, and 95111. So place is a factor. 85% of girls and 67% of boys in the prison system deal with depression, anxiety, and other emotional factors. Over 40% of them said in surveys that they lack parental support. 62% of females reported that, and males reported that they also suffer from intellectual capacities. We support the plan. We ask you to work together across city, county, and state lines to make this happen. We want youth and parent involvement, and we ask you to dream bigger. San Jose youth are beautiful, and they have many strengths.
Thank you. I will call the next 5 speakers to line up along the steps. Daenerys Cervantes, Dilza Gonzalez, Yosela Rizzo, Esperanza Alejandres, and Maria Alejandres. Thank you.
Lo voy a decir en español. Buenas tardes, concejales y supervisores del condado. Mi nombre es Yoseli Rizzo. Soy residente del Distrito 5 y estoy aquí por parte de Somos Mayfair. Vine aquí para mostrar mi apoyo al Plan Maestro de Infancia y Juventud. Al conectar a las familias como la nuestra con los recursos que necesitamos para prosperar, como programas y capacitación para el desarrollo juvenil, aprendizaje temprano de alta calidad y talleres para padres, pero lo más importante es brindar capacitación sobre atención basada en el trauma a todos los niños y al personal del apoyo familiar. La comunidad de
Un
Mayfair.
momento, un momento.
Ya, señora, un momento. ¿Tenemos el...?
Do we have translation?
Yeah,
We do.
Where?
Yeah.
She said.
Oh, okay. Can you please come down so you can translate for her, please? Vamos a traer a alguien de arriba para traducir. Gracias.
Thank you, Councilmember Torres.
Ya se va a acabar el tiempo.
Did you want us to give her a minute?
Yeah,
Back? Okay.
we'll start her over.
Okay, thank you.
Buenas tardes, concejales y supervisores del condado. Mi nombre es Yoseli Rizzo, soy residente del Distrito 5 y estoy aquí por Somos Mayfair para mostrar mi apoyo al Plan Maestro de Infancia y Juventud.
Good afternoon, supervisors of the county. My name is Jocelyn Rizzo. I'm a resident of the District Number 5, and I'm here with Somos Mayfair to show my support to this master plan for youth and for childhood. And to connect the families as with, like our family, with the resources that we need to prosper, with programs and training to develop the youth, to develop the learning, the early childhood learning with high quality, and also for the parents. But most important is to provide training for the trauma to all the children that suffer these traumas, and to provide support for the families. The community, the Mayfair community, is an example, is a historic example of how the changes, the incremental changes are for the community can lead us to better changes, to significant changes. For this reason, our community is advocating for the city's intervention, for time, effort, and resources to build a better system for children, for youth, for families, for a funding of $3 million in 3 years for this initiative, and to support our master plan for the youth and for the children.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
So good afternoon, City Council members and County Supervisors. My name is Elizabeth Quesada, and I am a resident of District 5, and I am here with Somos Mayfair and also the Si Se Puede Collective. I came here to show my support to the Children and Youth Master Plan. So the Si Se Puede Collective will be working to coordinate our children and youth services among our 5 organizations to improve collective outcomes. We hope our joint pilot with the city and the county will prove successful, and we look forward to improving our relationship with the city and county. So let's work together and approve this plan. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon, council members and county supervisors. My name is Jessica Trejo, and I'm a resident of District 5. I'm here with Somos Mayfair, and I came to show my support to the Children and Youth Master Plan. And by committing to building a no wrong door approach, where the Si Se Puede Collective and county and city work together, right, to ensure that we build youth empowerment, centering the experiences of young Latinos. And as a family advocate at the Family Resource Center, I get to see firsthand what the families go through and the needs of the community. So I would really love to see a lot of this implemented in our community to empower the youth and to just have a different system that works for children and for youth, because we really, really, really need it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello, my name is Janelle Garcia. I am here on behalf of the families that I work with every day and to show my support for the Children and Youth Master Plan. And I hope it will gain your support as well by expanding and funding systems of care to support our youth, parents, caregivers, and giving them the opportunity to increase the ability of community gatherings and recreational spaces. The Mayfair community is a historical example of how community-informed and driven incremental changes can lead to improvements and meaningful change. For this reason, our community is advocating for the city to make a significant investment of time, effort, and resources to build and scale an East Side system of care for children, youth, and families by funding this initiative pilot and supporting the Children and Youth Master Plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon, City Council members and County Supervisors. My name is Jessica Moctezuma. I'm here with Somos Mayfair, and I as well came here to show my support for the Children and Youth Master Plan. This work is not easy, and the Si Se Puede Collective needs infrastructure support to make the pilot program successful. Our community is driven by our community committee, which continues to inform our organizations about their needs. Our pilot process will serve as an alternative community engagement approach to create strong services, deep neighborhood support, and tangible yet transformative solutions. For these reasons, our community is advocating for the city to make a significant investment in time, effort, and resources to build and scale an East Side system of care for children, youth, and families by funding $3 million over 3 years for this initiative pilot and supporting the Children and Youth Master Plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon, City Council members and County Supervisors. My name is Deneri. I am a resident from District 3, and I am here with Somos Mayfair. I came here to show my support to this Children and Youth Master Program. By connecting families like ours to resources we need to thrive, such as youth development training and programs, high quality early learning and parent workshops, but most importantly, by providing trauma-informed care training to all children and family by supporting staff. For this reason, our community is advocating for the city to make a significant investment of time, effort, and resources to build and escalate a East Side system of care for children, youth, and families. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to call the next names to line up along the steps. For Glenn, last name starts with the R, John Sweeney, Wendy Mahaney, Claudia Goello, Josue Marufo, and Rosalia, one more, and Blair Beekman. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Good afternoon, City Council members and County Supervisors. My name is Esperanza Alejandres, and I am a resident of District 5, and I am here with Somos Mayfair and Jóvenes Activos. I came to show my support to the Children and Youth Master Plan. With all due respect, I think it's very important to invite actual youth when it comes to these meetings next time, because it's the needs that we need and want as well. So not just adults and young adults. So just keep that in mind next time, and thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon, City Council members and County Supervisors. My name is Maria Alejandres. I am a resident of District 5. I am here with Jóvenes Activos and Somos Mayfair. I came to show support to the Children and Youth Master Plan. I did have a lot to say, but due to being timed and stuff, I would like to request that any meeting about us youth should be on a time where we can participate. I had friends that wanted to attend but could not due to the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon. My name is Lisa Gonzalez. I am with Somos Mayfair and the Si Se Puede Collective. I am also a resident of District 5. And I am here to show my support to the Children and Youth Master Plan, as well as this is what we're building when we invest in our kids.
We're building leaders that are able to advocate for themselves, that believes in themselves, but also put the older youth and children up front as well, right? They're not speaking just for themselves, but for the hundreds and thousands of youth outside. This is the Children and Youth Master Plan. We need to terminate and be able to invest in that mental health wealth, in the leadership, and in the future of our kids that are able to thrive and speak on themselves. Once again, thank you very much. I am here to support the Children and Master Youth, and I am excited to collaborate with you all.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Glenn Vandersee. I'm the superintendent of the Eastside Union High School District. It's good to see the city and county leadership and youth leadership all here today, as well as our partners. At Eastside, we're looking to build equitable communities where students are welcomed as they are. Their areas of strength and areas for growth are known, and so we can positively respond. For years, we've talked about we've got a resource for that. That's different than positively responding so that our students can be full participants in their classrooms, their schools, and Silicon Valley. For too long, our students have not been offered the opportunity for full participation in Silicon Valley, partly due to the fact of how our state funds our system. Our students receive $12,000 per student. A high school district 20 minutes from here in this same county receives $24,000 per student. That's 50% that Eastside students receive. That compounds the problems that we saw earlier. Last year we had 1,242 unhoused students as Eastside students. We had 22.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, I'm Wendy Mahdi-Gurhu, resident of District 10, and I'm going to list off a name of agencies that I represent, not to prove how tired I am, but to show how excellent both staff of the city and the county, who I'm big fans of, have been including everyone in the community to have a voice around the master plan. So I'm here representing the City of San Jose's Library and Education Commission. I'm vice president of San Jose Unified, First Five. I'm representing them, Educare, County Office of Ed's Local Child Care Planning Council, all of these agents, and finally, Build the Future, investing in child care for a stronger economy. All of these agencies have been engaged in all of this work, and it's thanks to you all that it's happening, and we highly endorse and recommend that we invest sustainably over time, that this work gets done in the city and through the county. I'll also say the district, the city, and the county work, lining those three things up, make it better for children.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Josue, and I'm a part of Homeless Activos Somos Mayfair. I'm 14 years old in high school. I live in the east side of San Jose. The problem I see our people go through are having a high chance of being homeless. This means it's possible doing bad in school, using drugs to deal with their problems. They will have to move outside of San Jose to no one knowing them. They will lose their community. At Homeless Activo, I build my confidence and learn to speak up in public, to have a voice, to be a leader in my community. I ask you to support the Young Master Plan so more young people are empowered. Our families have resources and have child care. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon, City Council members and County Supervisors. My name is Claudia Cuello. I am a resident of District 5, and I am here with Somos Mayfair. I came here to show my support to the Children and Youth Master Plan. By expanding and funding systems of care to support our youth, parents and caregivers are given the opportunity to increase the abilities of community gatherings and safe recreational spaces. And lovely to hear that also including those of different abilities. The Mayfair community is a clear example of community informed and driven incremental changes can lead to improvements and meaningful changes. For this reason, our community is advocating for the city to make significant investment of time, effort, and resources to build and scale the East Side systems of care for children, youth, families, and by funding $3 million over the 3 years for this.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon, City Council members and County Supervisors and staff. On behalf of the County Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Marianne Dewan, the Santa Clara County Office of Education would like to offer its ongoing support for the development and implementation of the city's Children and Youth Master Plan. There are significant changes occurring in early learning and care, school-based mental health and behavioral health, and other areas where the Santa Clara County Office of Education is deeply involved in systems and policy change that bear directly on the goals and strategies of the plan. We encourage ongoing coordination between the city's master plan and these other efforts housed in the educational field. For example, the Santa Clara County Office of Education's Early Learning Master Plan is gaining a relevant update that will be released soon, and the almost 24 school-based wellness centers operated by the Santa Clara County Office of Education bear relevance to this ongoing.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, Blair Beekman. I may not be so great about this, new to me, but the work I do with tech accountability, I think has the ability to take a really deep dive into a deep ocean, and this is called blue zone things, so I'm interested in how I work with things like Vision Zero, and this really addresses Vision Zero well, I think, hopefully. So I'm interested how, from Vision Zero, Guadalajara, Mexico, has their 4-day, shopping fiesta centers. How does that kind of fit into this work for the future? Good luck how tech accountability can be a part of the future of this process. Thanks.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon. My name is Rosalia Estrada. I work with Catholic Charities, and I have the pleasure of being accompanying some of the promotoras that work at the Santee neighborhood. We decided to bring the cuter promotora, so that way you can listen to us better. We had the pleasure to work with Laura in this master plan since the beginning, and we're very excited about this work. The promotoras and the whole community are ready to work with the city, the county, and the council, the concejales. The only thing we need is the support and the resources, so we definitely are here in support of the master plan, and we hope that we'll get more resources for our youth and our children. Thank you for your time.
And we will now head to Zoom. Is there any more speakers from the public? I don't see anyone, so we will head to Zoom. The first speaker is going to be Abigail Hinson. Abigail, you're unmuted. You can speak.
How many speakers do we have online?
We have 6 hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, thank you. So the queue for online will close now.
Yes.
Can I go?
Yes, Abigail, you can go.
Okay. Good afternoon, City Council members and County Supervisors. My name is Abigail Heinzen, and I'm a resident of District 3, and I'm here with Feji Lucian and the Si Se Puede Collective. I came here to show my support for the Children and Youth Master Plan. We support this plan because it will expand and fund systems of care that support our youth, parents, and caregivers, and will give them the opportunity to increase access to recreational spaces and community gatherings. Please support this important plan driven by the Si Se Puede Collective's Community Committee, made up of East San Jose residents representing our member organizations. Thank you so much.
Brenda Garcia.
Hello. Good afternoon, City Council members. My name is Brenda Garcia Lujano. I am a site supervisor of a family resource center with Somos Mayfair, and I'm speaking in representation of each individual that comes through our doors. In the Santa Clara County Children's Data Book, the data shows a decrease in access to quality early care and education. It shows large percentages in low attendance and low academic results in our East Side public schools. Meanwhile, there is no data ready that shows social emotional well-being for our children. Social emotional development and well-being is crucial in brain development and life outcomes for our children and youth. If the Children and Youth's Master Plan is passed, the city will be investing to ensure that our families, children, and youth have access to the quality childcare, leadership development, resources, and skill building for our youth to thrive. And for this reason, we want to advocate for the city to invest their time, effort, and funding to build an East Side system of care for our children, our youth, and all of our families. Thank you.
Next, we have Richard Correa.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Richard Correa, Program Manager at Go Kids Incorporated. And I just wanted to show support for the Youth Master Plan. I know time is of the essence, but I just wanted to also reach out and say thank you to Laura for the thoroughness of the assessment of our community in the process that gave the inclusive voice, that gave inclusive and apologies, that was inclusive and gave voices to those who might otherwise go unheard, which is a lot of the families that we serve over here at Go Kids. Thank you.
Maria Martinez.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Maria Martinez, and I am resident at District 5, and also I'm working with Somos Mayfair. And I came here to show my support to children and young master. If passed with all the recommendations, it will continue to support our family that come here to the Family Resource Center as a site supervisor here in site San Jose. We can connect families to the resources that we need to try, such as parent workshop, young development training, and program in high quality early learning. But most important, by providing trauma-informed care training to all children and family support staff. The Mayfair community is a historical example of how community informant and driving incremental changes can lead to improvement and meaningful changes. For this reason, our community is advocacy to the city to make a significant investment on time for and resources.
Nayeli Sedano.
Hi, good afternoon. Council members and county supervisors, I'm Nayeli Sedano, resident of District 2. I want to express my full support to the Children and Youth Master Plan. I have had the opportunity of having my young children participate in activities offered by the Parks and Recreation Department. And I want to emphasize how crucial these opportunities have been for my children and overall for all families in San Jose, not only during the pandemic, but continuously ongoing, and for this reason, I urge all of you to support and invest in the pilot of the Children and Youth Master Plan.
Kimberly Alvarez.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kimberly Alvarez. I'm the Director of Operations at Healthier Kids Foundation. HKF was involved in the planning of the city's Children and Youth Services Master Plan, and we just wanted to show that we see a great value in this. Children in the city of San Jose will greatly benefit from this collaboration. For anyone not familiar with Healthier Kids Foundation, we provide physical health screenings in schools throughout the county, wellness checks with behavioral health referrals in targeted schools, along with other educational programs. We really look forward to continuing our partnership with the city to continue supporting the children and families that we serve. Thank you so much for your time.
Back to the committee.
Thank you. The supervisors have asked that the council goes first, so I'll call on Councilmember Torres.
Good afternoon, and just like Jeremy, oh no, I'm going to set the tone here. Yikes! I'm usually not first. Usually it's Councilmember Ortiz. So first of all, I would like to thank our presenters for the informative presentation. I think what we heard is extremely important, especially since many of us are new on this committee or on the council, and I do know that since 2015, our city has implemented a series of programs aimed at our youth, right? Initiatives such as San Jose Learns, Coding 5K, San Jose Works, San Jose Aspires, right? Including other robust programs from PRNS and our library department. And for me, I've known that this has taken a lot of blood, sweat, and tears for many of you in this room and our community leaders for us to do so, right, both at the city and the county level. And I'm a product of the Washington community, right? I could have fallen through the cracks, but I participated in city and county-led youth initiatives that led me to become who I am today, right? Which is, you know, a rambunctious youth to a council member now, right? And so our joint meeting with the county marks a significant stride as we collaborate closely to prioritize our youth, but most importantly, destroy the cradle to prison pipeline that unjust policies have created. And I look forward to working with you and working with our community and working with our nonprofit providers to finally create a robust cradle to college or cradle to career pipeline. Not too long ago, in this committee, we heard statistics of our large unhoused population, and it's not surprising that zip codes 95112, 95116, 95122, 95127 have the largest unhoused population, right? All the folks out in our streets, a majority of them are from these zip codes. So we are in a critical moment in the city of San Jose where we are dealing with a humanitarian crisis because of the lack of investment in our youth and families and other discriminatory and unjust housing policies that our city has passed. The 21-22 budget message intended to use the funding to develop an office focused on youth development and programs. As of right now, various programs and services are sprinkled throughout every department in our city, and it is important that there is a greater alignment of our programs to ensure that there is better continuum of support for our youth in high-need neighborhoods and ensure greater uniformity of standards and performance metrics across programs. So I ask our city, as we finalize the youth master plan, have discussions commenced regarding the establishing an office of youth development in our city?
So, Councilmember, I'll take that one. So that is still a question that we're assessing, right? And what we didn't want to do is prescribe too soon, right? The first goal, kind of going back to the original conversation, which, by the way, I think it's important to kind of give some kudos to Councilmember Carrasco and Councilmember Arenas, who were very key in those initial conversations leading to this work. We wanted to create the space to first engage the community and really take a look at kind of the state of children, youth, and families, and then really let the facts, let the kind of the unimpeachable facts kind of really dictate and inform how we do this work. Starting first and foremost with how we better coordinate interdepartmentally our city resources, because as you mentioned, there's a lot of money invested in those different programs, but still very siloed, and we could do better, right? And then secondly, as we roll out this children and youth master plan in coordination with the community, is really then asking ourselves what structure will enable the vision of this master plan. And so that decision point is still imminent.
Right. Thank you. And I'm glad that we're going to continue to have the conversation. But so, Angel, and those out in the audience, establishing an office is very imperative for me, who grew up in under-resourced neighborhoods and under-resourced schools, et cetera. Right? It guarantees a consistent allocation of funds aimed at investing in our youth. And I say this because it is very, very unfortunate that educational funding in lower communities lags, right, than our more wealthier areas, right? The imbalance is reflected in our proficiency rates for English and math, which currently stand at an alarming 17% and 14%. In essence, this means that a staggering 85% of our children lack proficiency in these critical skills essential for their success in Silicon Valley. This statistic should be unacceptable to each and every one of us here today. This underscores the critical need for a dedicated youth development office in our city. We cannot accept the failure of any child, regardless in what zip code they are born into. And so with that, I do have a couple more questions. The other one is in the public health department in the county's presentation, I see that we have violence prevention programming, but as an elected official and being out in our community, and being in these committee hearings and meetings, I've heard that domestic violence and intimate partner violence is affecting every walk of life, especially our families, especially in lower income families who don't usually report it. So, and I think this is a question for both the county and our city, where does our city and county domestic violence programs fit into this master plan? So I guess I could have this county answer, and then hopefully we can have the city. Oh yeah, yes, or our county board of supervisors answer.
I was going to say, I want to ask Dr. Luna to lean in, but let me just start by saying that in partnership with the city of San Jose, and this is mostly just to give a little context, in probably 2016, 17, we did some joint hearings with the city and the county, and we elicited feedback from the community, and we got a lot of feedback about what we could do to improve our domestic violence programs, expansion of those services. And at that time, the county was spending at about $1 million a year for services for domestic violence, human trafficking, and sexual assault. We are just out for another RFP, and I think our spending is closer to almost $10 million a year now. And what I would say that the partnership between our entities is actually pretty significant. All that said, Dr. Luna, I wanted to just see if there's anything else you want to lean in on, because I do think the question you're asking about the connectivity to this is part of the reason that integrated approach is so necessary. Because in some ways we think about these programs as, here we're dealing with domestic violence, but as a matter of fact, we're not, because we're providing services to the entire family. When someone commits an act of domestic violence, we're applying services to them, but when appropriate, to their entire families through our victim witness program. So I think some of this is how we think about our investments in a much more holistic way. And that's so one thing that you guys will all have in your packet is you'll see that we're going to give you all a bunch of reports that we're producing, because I think it will help all of us think about where are the touch points where integration is even more necessary than the way we're providing it today, and that's part of the reason we wanted to have this hearing. But Dr. Luna, I'm sorry, I just jumped in there because I'm so excited to say that came out of a collaboration between the city and the county that's really propelled us forward.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Chavez, and of course, thank you to your leadership for, as she noted, the county has invested year over year into ensuring that we have gender-based violence prevention investments, because all of these things are very related, and unfortunately we are seeing this play out in exactly the zip codes that we are all concerned with and want to invest heavily in, because we have interdependencies across all of our services. I think we have to map them out, and we have to make sure that we know where all the handoffs off, and of course to ensure that whatever we are funding and investing in really has that return on investment, so that we see those numbers drop over time. And the only way to do that really is to sort of roll up our sleeves and make sure that we are all communicating and sharing information, and of course working with our community partners and the folks that are actually living it day to day, the folks that were here today, to let us know how things are looking, really, how things are. We can say one thing and the paper plays out on one thing, but of course, we need to hear directly from our communities that are most impacted about whether or not what we're putting into play actually is resonating, and where we can actually see a quick return on our investment, so we can see those numbers decline.
The only other thing I'll add is that we're doing a gaps analysis right now, and we can include all of the same partners in the gaps analysis on domestic violence, gender-based violence in particular, and we'll make that as a next step out of this meeting.
Great. Thank you, Supervisor. And then I don't know if our city wants
Councilmember
Yes, sorry.
Torres,
Yeah.
before you get to your second question,
Yeah.
I'll let Angel answer if he wants to chime in on this one, but before you get to your second question, can we have a second round? Because I have other council members and you're over your time, so I just want to give you a heads up.
Great, thank you.
Go ahead, Angel, sorry.
Just building on what Supervisor Chavez mentioned, you know, when you take a look at domestic violence and access to support, in a lot of times it's siloed, right? So when we talk about the no wrong door approach, we want to embed access to domestic violence support and intervention throughout the entire continuum. You may come in for a coding class at the library, but then somebody there kind of, you know, through an exchange of information realizes, oh, there's something else going on, then it's that door that we connect and get access to domestic violence. So if we do this right, then that's how it'll play out.
Great, thank you. And I did write down my other question, so I'll wait for the second round. Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Councilmember Ortiz, you're next. I can do it.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you to staff for that very well presented report, both city staff and county staff. As someone who, you know, grew up in a broken family, who witnessed, you know, domestic violence and you know, drug use, and who spent some time as a houseless individual as a youth, the conversations around centering the well-being of our children and the entire family unit is truly key to the success of our entire city. And I want to stop and make sure that I give kudos and thanks. Oh, I don't know where she's at, but Supervisor Arenas and Councilmember Crosco, wherever you are right now, for spearheading this effort while they were on the council. And of course, a thank you to staff who've ensured that it continues to stay a priority for our city here. For years, we've known that, you know, many factors in life, whether it's poverty, housing, lack of resources, and the intentional underfunding of our public school systems have all can have a detrimental effect on our children, you know, especially in their academic development, career outcomes, you know, and mental health. And it's crucial that our city continues to, well, us in general, because we're here with the county, continue to break down silos, both between government entities and city departments, to make sure we are serving the whole child, and not, you know, wasting time on disagreements on whose jurisdiction is this or whose priority it is to serve this population, because we know that, you know, this is cliche, but it takes a village to raise a child and prepare the next generation for their future. I appreciate that the foundation of this plan is an acknowledgement of the historical inequities within our society, whether based on race, economic standing, sexuality, or developmental needs. It's important that we acknowledge these factors that have created our current inequities in our society, such as redlining, defunding of public programs, racism, racial bias in lending, you know, that unfortunately has clipped the wings of our youth before they've reached the age where they're truly able to fly. And I'm also proud to see that despite these challenges that our city has acknowledged that impact our residents till this day, that we are committed to work towards the success of these youth and of these communities and make sure that they're not left behind. We have a lot of work to do, and these goals are easier said than done. I'll be the first one to say that. But if we continue to center our most vulnerable populations, we are on the right path. I'm excited to learn about the new demonstration sites, 2 of them in my district, Pokeway and the Mayfair neighborhoods. 2 beautiful communities with deep cultural roots, inspiring stories of activism and overcoming adversity, but also with their share of challenges. The youth that come out of these communities and go on to be successful, to go to college, to get amazing jobs, unfortunately, they've been considered to be contrary to the rule. or even a shining light in the darkness. But the truth is that children in these neighborhoods shouldn't have to be the next prodigy in order to have a happy life, in order to receive a livable wage job, or to be able to afford housing here in our city. But unfortunately, that's the reality. They deserve to have access to these things. I also know that there are many other neighborhoods who are just as worthy of these services as these new demonstration sites. So I look forward to receiving the positive data from this work so that we may expand it to other neighborhoods throughout the city who I know need this desperately. Finally, I just want to thank all of our partners in the room, whether it's school districts, nonprofits, activists. All of you have a very important role in this work, so I'm glad you've come here to make sure that your voice is heard and that your community is heard as well. So I do have just two questions. Will we be, and this question is to Angel, when the next budget cycle comes around, right, will we be asking for funding and resources to expand the investment into this program to make sure that we prove to the community that we take this work seriously?
Yeah, Councilmember. So we kind of thought we kind of thought in advance also when we received the allocation of 10.5 million, we did reserve a small portion of those funds with this plan in mind. So then that way, when we hit this stage of the process, we can actually allocate some of those funds, because it's not enough to just come up with a plan if we're not going to be able to execute on something. So we have done that. We have set a reserve of dollars aside to fund some preliminary, in this case, the 2 pilots. And in addition to that, we really see that the information that we're getting from the community will also help inform budget proposals in this upcoming budget, right? Both whether they come up through the departments, which is part of the process, or whether it comes as part of a Children and Youth Master Plan recommendation. Internally, what we're trying to do, and what we will be doing, is anything that has to do with children, youth, and families will be funneled through the Children and Youth Family Master Plan framework. And then that'll ensure greater accountability. It'll also ensure that we can track performance and then report back on return on investment. So that's the plan as of now.
Okay, appreciate that. So what I heard is essentially this data is going to inform us for future budget proposals and requests from the budget. Okay, that's wonderful. And finally, I know there's many factors that impact our children's education, right? How and I think a lot of times when we judge school districts, it's not so fair. It's not fair when we're working with youth who are dealing with food insecurity, housing insecurity. How are youth going to be able to learn under these conditions? Are we going to be working with school districts on things like, reading levels, reading scores, mathematic level performances? Because a lot of that dictate, from young age, the success and the future trajectory of our youth.
Absolutely, Council Member. We have already started our Collective Impact Network, which is a group of us working together to begin designing this demonstration sites, infrastructure and process. And we have key school districts on board already that have been participating, not only in lifting up the voices of families and youth in the design of the master plan, but also at the table as we begin developing the system of care, this no wrong door entry that we have been talking about. We have Alum Rock School District, Franklin McKinley School District, Eastside Union High School District, Berryessa, San Jose Unified, and also the higher education institutional leaders, so like San Jose State, Evergreen, San Jose City, and other education partners. So yes, that's definitely an emphasis, and I can't miss, obviously, the County Office of Education, because they provide a spectrum of services for our students throughout the county.
That's great. I think, I've mentioned this before in past presentations on this, that cradle to career focus is extremely important, because graduation, getting a certificate, getting that training is one thing, but how does that result in a job? How does that make sure that the individual who crosses that stage when they get the certificate or degree, then is able to pay their rent or, is able to provide for their family. So I see myself running out of time, but I thank you all, and I appreciate this conversation.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Candelas.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I too want to begin my comments by giving a sincere appreciation to staff, both county and city staff, on their presentation and the work in putting together the trove of pages of the report that we got and also the presentation. And along with that, I too wanted to give some kudos or some props to County Supervisor Silvia Arenas, previously Councilwoman Silvia Arenas, and previous council members who pushed this Children and Youth Services Master Plan to where we are now. And so given due props to my colleagues and former colleagues is absolutely due. And then as part of the staff presentation that we saw, we see the disproportionate number of representation of adults and juveniles coming from certain zip codes, including 95121, which is the zip code I grew up in both East Side San Jose and downtown. And so, I think it's important to know that as we move forward on some of the recommendations. But I do want to touch on one of the points, and a few of the points raised by my colleagues already is, I think it starts in the budget, as part of the budget process, and I hope that staff and Angel and the administration, given the importance of the work, I know we set aside around $10 million for the recommendations, but these investments, need to be reflected. Then I don't know how much is left as part of that initial allocation a few years back, but is important as the administration starts developing the budget recommendations for the following year, that it is my hope that they keep that in mind as the March budget message, and with the final plan coming to us in January, that we have enough time to think of some recommendations that we can put into effect, not just the remaining fund balance of the $10 million allocation through the ARP, but through city investments in the following fiscal year. And I think it's, the work is vast, but so should be our commitment. I think that's important, and there is no one on this dais that does not believe that. And so I'm really happy to have our county partners here, because this kind of intergovernmental coordination is key. Whether we want to see better outcomes for, our children not ended up in the prison system, we want to, healthier communities. I think it all starts with this type of game-changing collaboration, just like when we started the Gang Prevention Task Force almost 3-4 decades ago. I think this is the next phase of that evolution of service delivered to our community. So I'm committed to improving these outcomes, working alongside our county partners, our education partners, our nonprofit partners who are in the room, and look forward to hearing from my colleagues on the county next. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Dwan?
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I want to say thank you to the staff. Thank you to County Supervisor, just High School Unified District, and the young adult that took the time today to come out to speak on the behalf of other young adults. I believe that we shouldn't, I use the military motto is that leave no child behind, leave no soldier behind. Because every single child that we fail out there, we failing a whole family. And for the next generation that's continued to suffer. I just have a little quick question. It was mentioned a little bit earlier that there's a disparity between the amount of funding for the students right here in San Jose versus other city or other school. How does that happen, and how do we gap that differences?
I believe Superintendent
from Eastside Union High School District has left. There is a formula, and unfortunately, I'm not versed in that. Okay. So I don't know if we have anyone else who can talk about that. But it is a formula that's developed by the state that the school districts abide by, and then also you have to think about property taxes, which also generate revenue and funding that support the school districts. And so, as you can imagine, there's some disparities around that as well.
Yes, it's true. There's that property taxes and so on, and how we fund that. But I think it should be equal, or at least more funding for underserved children. And I think we have to, find ways to legislature and change those policy to balance out. And I think that if we continue the road we're heading and we're saying, well, it's because of property taxes, then we're not treating our children equally. And that's the root cause, right? Beside being prejudiced, underserved, ethnicity, language barrier, you name it. I came here as an immigrant, so I understand those barriers. And I believe that we can do so much better. And today is great to see the collaboration between the county, this unified school districts, and the city. And again, I want to thank you everyone for their hard work.
Supervisor Chavez?
Thank you. I just want to do a time check for my colleagues that we were told everybody we're going to end at 4, but we're going to end at 4:30 as close as we can. I'm going to turn to my colleague Supervisor Arenas, and then instead of asking questions, I think what I want to do is take some time to do a wrap up, because we should talk a little bit about next steps, if that's okay with all of you. All right, Sylvia, take it away.
Thank you. It feels really good to be back. Although it feels really good to have to be now part of the Board of Supervisors and to have wonderful colleagues like Supervisor Chavez. And so, but this feels like home. Anyways, okay. So, what I was going to talk about, and it's part of what I heard loud and clear from the community, and that's the youth wants to be heard. And so, I really want to make sure that we create pathways to integrate what our youth are telling us, not only in our strategic plan, but also in the Child and Youth Master Plan. I know I can't direct you to do that, but I'm hoping my colleagues will do so in a motion, or whether they're, I'm sure they don't even have to direct you. I'm sure that you heard them loud and clear. And one of the things that I wanted to really highlight was what I heard yesterday at the Juvenile Justice Coordinating Council, where there was part of the conversation was a study that had the recognition of some of what our youth are going through. And for males, there was 3 criminogenic needs. It was emotional factors, relationships, and substance use. And then for females, this was a gender-based distinction. And for females, it was emotional factors, relationships, and then family history problems. And so there's a clear, a difference in terms of gender. And so I want us to also make sure that we recognize that. And we also know and understand that for females, the number one reason why they get into juvenile justice system is primarily is because of sexual assault or something related to that. And so I want us to make sure, and I think there was somebody who also asked about intimate partner violence and how we are going to integrate that. And this is going to be part of the No Wrong Door, which I was happy to introduce that memo for the No Wrong Door, and I'm glad to see it feels really good. Everything takes so long, so it feels really good when you come back and you're like, oh, they're working on the No Wrong Door. Oh, our Child and Youth Master Plan is up and going, right? We've been walking some baby steps, and now it feels like this is really where we're doing a lot of the growth. And I think while we're doing this growth, there's also this crisis that's happening among our youth, and that is this post-pandemic fallout, right? And so there's a lot of emotional, social, emotional, and relationship needs for our students, and we need to make sure that we continue to hear them so that we provide the services in a way that makes sense to them. I heard you loud and clear, Laura. You said, you know, the system should be youth focused and not institution focused. But we need to make sure that our institutions are talking with one another, right? So like yesterday, what we learned about also the ethnic differences and disparities in the juvenile justice involved youth. And I just want to share some of this is that, of course, you all know that Latino and Black youth are absolutely overrepresented in our systems, and it's mostly male. They're from 14 to 17. And there was an increase to juvenile hall from 2021 to 2022, and arrest citations increased by 33%, referrals to juvenile hall increased by 35%, and admissions increased into 32%. And I know our probation department is working really hard to not incarcerate our youth, but the truth is that usually our children behave differently when there's crisis, when there's stress, and there's things that are happening. And we can't look back at a system. We can't look back and say, what we should have done. We really need to create a system that has our finger on the pulse and that can really pivot quickly. And I think that can only happen when we bring in, and I don't know who mentioned this, but when we bring in school districts, and when we bring in the schools themselves, because superintendents know their district the best, but principals know their schools the best, and teachers know their classrooms the best, right? And so I think when we have more intimate conversations with the boots on the ground, that's when we're really going to figure out what our kiddos need. One of the things that I'm really proud of leaving as a council member is our family-friendly initiative, and this is not just to share with the audience, but also to ask my colleagues to continue to protect our children and families by holding up this initiative, by making sure that we continue to invest. You all, or some of you who are here with me, one person, well, you are gonna hold the fort, and you're gonna tell the rest of the colleagues. We both voted for $10 million from the AARP funding for children and families. And at that time, we had figured the investment, and we had figured out that we had invested less than 1% of the AARP funding to children and families at that point. And so we have $10 million, and this was earmarked for children, for not only the Children and Masters Youth Plan, but for us other efforts that were taking place at the moment as well. And so I'm going to ask you, my colleagues, to continue to protect that, because if we don't invest now, we're going to pay for a lot of it later. And that is money that could be very well spent now to make sure our communities thrive. And so I ask you, if when times get tough, and times are going to get tough, you're going to see it in mid-year, I'm going to ask you to really stay strong and to support Angel and to support Laura and to support all of our community members who've come in and said, we need teeth. You know, we need resources. We need something to really back up everything that we want. And I heard loud and clear from one of the members who said they wanted to make sure that there was trainings, that there were parent involvement, that there was early childhood opportunities, that there were trauma-informed training to interact with youth in a more appropriate way, and ways for them to ask for services. And so it just makes me think about how we really need to coordinate at a greater scale than what we're doing right now, and not because we're not doing enough,
but we need to also be informed about, with our juvenile justice system and our probation department, what are some of the impacts that we're seeing right now? What are our incarcerated or our juvenile justice impacted youth dealing with, so that we can potentially fund programs? And I think it was Andrea Flores-Shelton, you were in our meeting yesterday, and you talked about, there was a federal grant, a pivot grant that seemed to produce some really good results with our incarcerated youth, but then the money ran out in March. And so that would have been a great opportunity for our systems to talk to the city of San Jose, or this is with the CDBG grants, so that we can have our youth get involved, or affiliated youth, to the ones that we typically see that are involved in the juvenile justice system, so that we can then fund some of those agencies, because I think both of those agencies are agencies that you could fund within that system. If one system is down, then the other one needs to pick it up. And this is how we need to put those pieces together. And so I'm going to ask you also, colleagues, I don't know who on this, maybe through the chair, to also be involved in our in this council, where we talk about some of these trends, where we're trying to coordinate. I know Andrea already does it, but I think an elected should also participate. Susan and I sit on that as liaisons, but it would be wonderful if we could see some of the city electeds. So anyways, those are some of my thoughts in terms of, I had other questions, but I'm not going to do that, and we could do this offline, but most of my comments and questions have to do with how we are integrating what we know now about our youth, what we know is impacting them, and how are we informing what we're going to do next. Because I know that the Child and Youth Master Plan was primarily one of the reasons why, as former chair of the NSC, we saw how Latino children were getting left behind, are continually getting left behind. They're not graduating at the same level, they're not reading at the same level, and as long as that is happening, I feel that everybody is failing them. We're failing them. And if we're failing them, then we need to behave and create an overhaul in our systems to make sure that we create pathways so that they can thrive. And I love this idea about the blue zones. I love the idea about the blue zones. And I feel like one step further for the blue zone, before the blue zones even come, we need to make sure that there's some parity in the community. And it can only happen if we have this really hyper-focused look at the children who are failing the most, and that is Latinos. Actually, it's children who are Black, and then Latinos. And it's absolutely horrendous. And we need to make sure that we continually and collectively work together so our systems can serve everybody the best. Anyways, thank you. And thank you, Chair Davis, for leading this charge, for continuing to think about our communities this way, and for really hosting this kind of conversations, because I think in the past we haven't had it, and I know it has a lot to do with Supervisor Chavez and her openness to having our municipalities work together. And so we have greater challenges than any city, county issue. And so I love seeing these opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Torres, did you want to ask your last question?
Yes, I have a lot of questions. I'll save some for offline.
Just one, and then
just
yep.
one. Yes. So I'll save the, I'll save my last question then for our city. And again, the reason why I brought up the Office of Youth Development is because we truly do not know how much our city invests in our youth. And I know that it is a lot, and I know that we do the work, but we do not know. So my last question is to, I believe, Angel, and the question that I have is, can this committee, our NSC committee, even though we're today with our county, but can our NSC committee, can we ask for an MBA for the next budget cycle to create some sort of line item on like youth investment or youth development? May it be 5%, 10%. Heck, I would love it to be 100% that investing in our youth, but it's not. So can this body ask for an MBA?
So I don't believe this body can take a motion because it wasn't agendized that way, but what you could do is advise, and then we could take that back as part of the system. I will say this, as part of the Children Youth Master Plan, we are actually, and we're kind of mirroring it along the county's report card, because they issue kind of an annual investment, they kind of itemize what they invest in children and youth. We're kind of like taking a page from them and doing something similar here at the city. So depending on timing, we may be able to include that as an attachment to the work plan. If not, we can always bring it back to NSC through our internal process.
Okay, that's important, and thank you for telling me that. And before I yield my time, this is extremely important. This is extremely important for me. Youth and families, development of youth and families is extremely important to me. Corporations, multi-billion-dollar corporations, are not in this room, and they are not investing in our youth, and they should. And in this committee, we have heard time and time again that they do not invest in our after-school programming and other enrichment programs, and our multi-billion-dollar corporations need to step it up for our youth in the city of San Jose. And I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to piggyback on to Councilmember Torres's request for an MBA. I had actually written down the same thing. So Angel, when this comes back to the committee again, I think it comes back in January, if I remember the timeline correctly. What I would request is to have costs to implement the work plan, and whether that needs, if we can phase it out, phase in, I think that would be helpful. There was a repeated request for $3 million over 3 years. I'm not clear on where that number comes from, so I'd like to have a little bit more information on what would be included in that number and how that relates to the pilot sites. And I just want to be, just one clarifying question that we didn't get to. The demonstration sites, there are actually 4 demonstration sites, there's 4 neighborhoods, not 2, correct?
So there's actually 2 sites, but so you have the traditional
Serving
Mayfair
4
community, and you have the traditional kind of Seven Trees area, but we're also adding an attachment neighborhood, for example, Poco Way, and then Santee with Seven Trees. So we're kind of just attaching neighborhoods that aren't
Fit within the
necessarily come
geography.
together.
Okay, great, thank you. I appreciate that. And all 4 of those neighborhoods are going to be part of the pilot that is already funded through reserve funding. Is that correct?
That is our intent right now, yeah. Our plan is to take that as a recommendation when we bring this to the full council in January.
Okay, and what's the timing on the pilot?
We're working those details out right now. So we don't have that completely dialed in just yet, but we have determined what pilot sites based on the criteria that you heard about earlier.
Okay.
But we'll have more information as we get closer to January.
Okay, thank you. And I know Supervisor Chavez, if you'd like to talk a little bit about next steps, we appreciate that.
That'd be great, thank you. So first, I don't know where Amy and Mike are. Oh, there you are. Could you give everybody their bags? Because we have a bunch of reports. We're giving you your homework.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. They're treats. They're really fascinating pieces of work that have been done. And I think it will help inform us. Thank you. Be careful. All right, there you go. So let's, just to talk about some next steps, here's what I would like to recommend. I do think there would be value in us doing a co-convening again, but to refine it down to a few key areas. So one, it would be helpful if we could see the draft youth master plan, get it in advance enough that we could all read it. And then what I'd like to ask staff to do is queue up the 2 or 3 questions you think are most important to get feedback from the policymakers. Second, on the alignment for collective impact, the system. So this was on this was slide 22, and it is really unclear what the crosswalk activities are and who holds what under each of those bodies of work. And so I think defining that in a way that is very crystal clear and then presenting that to the group to see what's missing and to see if there's an understanding of that. And then last, on the demonstration projects, I think it would be of value to better understand what is going to be presented to the council in this area. And colleagues, let me just say why. At our committee, every time we are talking about something that is within your purview, I've asked our staff to take a look at what should be conveyed to the city to do and what are things that the county should be doing. And the point of that is not to advocate responsibility, but to make sure that the most skilled, responsible party, meaning skilled in a particular area, has the responsibility of performing. What I worry about is there's a lot of ambiguity between our work, and I think Councilmember Torres said something really interesting when he was talking about what are we doing relative to abating violence. And we are investing a lot of resources and have very particular areas that we've identified as our responsibility. We are doing some work that I think is actually yours. And so here's what I'm gonna say. If we could start with the demonstration sites, I think that would help all of us understand how to right-size that other programming. I'm not asking that we accomplish that. We'll make the meeting a little longer, and then make sure that there's obviously enough time for folks to give feedback. Is that comfortable for everybody as a way to proceed? Yes. My colleagues, yes, we're good? All right, then we won't make any motions because we're only making a direction, but to get our staffs an opportunity to work together. We'll make sure we give you the reading material. I want to say a very, very special thank you to the county staff, the city staff, Amy, you walk on water, to our clerks. I know none of this is easy, and we really appreciate you leaning in. Thank you, Dev, for being so gracious.
And I want to say thank you to everyone who came out for public comment, with a special thank you to the Jóvenes Activos. Thank you for coming. And Diana in my office she's right in the same row as you. If you can connect with her, we'll make sure that we schedule these for after school in the future, so hopefully a little bit later in the afternoon, so that you all can get here the next time that we do this. So thank you again for coming, and with that, we are adjourned. There are 2 meetings already scheduled. The next regular NSE meeting is on Thursday, December 14th, and the next regular county meeting on children, seniors, and families is on Monday, November 20th. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.